everything been coming along?
It's coming. It's coming. It's one of those things that you're never really truly prepared. You just always try to make the best of it every single moment. So it's coming. Thanks so much for
Exactly.
taking some time to meet with me and to kind of go over some basics.
Of course, I'm glad to help. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
I think everybody, time is a constraint. I'm getting the hang of the logic games, and I feel much more confident, especially with the training plan that I'm following. I'm following the 2-month training plan, and I'm probably just finished all the logic games in those sections, and I'm so sorry. And I'm going back again to kind of redo some of those that I've missed and double check where I went wrong. So time is a big constraint for me. And I think the biggest other challenge is not feeling flustered with it. You know what I mean? It's not just the time itself, but it's like seeing the clock go and you're just trying to rush through and you forget some of those inferences that you know that you've missed, but you're trying to get through it so quickly that you just forget about it.
Right, right. Do you feel like you have some kind of step-by-step process to
I
help you slow
do.
down?
I do. The problem is that I feel like I'm so slow in my thought process that it's just like I can't seem to speed it up fast enough to get through some of those logic games quicker. I wish I could, but I'm feeling a little frustrated with myself that I can't get through them quicker I'm getting them, the majority of them right. I'm just not getting them done with enough time.
How long have you been working on logic games for?
Well, I've started my whole prep originally back in January. So it's been a while and I'm tired of it. It's one of those things I'm exhausted mentally. It's, going through over the same items. And then once I started your course about a month and change ago, I kind of hit the reset button. I was like, okay, let's just follow the 2-month training plan. And so I've probably been with about, I don't know, a couple of weeks in logic games and I'm ready to move on, but I don't know at what point should I move on and should I just stick to it until I actually get it, until I actually move past that time constraint. So that's kind of where my challenge is. And my questions, especially for you, is how long do I stay in logic games and when do I move on? Because I don't feel 100% confident, but I do want to feel that I want to be able to grasp the other sections just as much. Because originally I thought to take it here in June, but it's coming around so quickly that I might just have to push it to August.
Well, you can move on without moving on, right? So you can progress into logical reasoning, but still keep practicing logic games along the way.
Okay.
You're talking about making a reset on your logic games. I think that's valuable for you, especially if the other methods you were using just weren't working for you. And now you're feeling like, hey, it's going slowly, but you're getting them right.
Yes.
So that's where we look to increase your efficiency on games. And you can increase efficiency through making more inferences up front, as well as from reusing your previous work. So any hypothetical scenario that you draw.
So I do have a question for you. What happens in the cases where you are stuck and you didn't see the inferences? And what I've kind of been doing is going back and YouTubing those prep tests because I don't know where I went wrong. And so I want to identify where the problem and so I've been going back doing some quick Google search on YouTube and seeing other people's explanations of the game. Do you think that's a bad idea? You think it's a good idea? What are your thoughts?
Explanations can be really helpful. Just don't use them as a crutch, meaning you want to work through a lot of it on your own first, struggle with it on your own, see how you can solve it.
Okay.
And then if you feel like you can't solve it, of course, or you are curious about there being a better way, then yes, of course, you can look at the explanations. Just keep in mind that the explanations are often just one person's so-called perfect way of doing it. And they may not always be realistic under test day timed conditions. One of the cool things about the logic games in the course is that we're walking through it live, like you would actually solve it, making the inferences along the way in real time. Not like you've done it before, right before class, and already know exactly how to do it. Then that's cheating, right? So we have to make it more realistic. And in class, we're walking through it, interacting with students to see how different people might approach it. And there's not always one best way. So keeping that in mind as well.
No, I do like the classes, and I do like the interaction and other people's point of view, of how they came up with some inferences that the instructor might have not seen, or a different way of approaching the game. I find that I've been more in line with the presenter instead of the teammates on the other end. And so it's nice to see, like, well, I didn't even think about, putting 6 games together at the beginning and then starting. I wanted to move quicker, so maybe making 2 and then down the road making a few more. So, but it's helping. It's helping. I just feel like it's a little slow, and like I said, I'm just tired. I want to be done with it.
I feel you on that.
It's like after so many years and so many months of just like, how many more hours am I going to put into this? And so that's where I'm at right now. I want to get ready for August. I really want to get through a lot of the items and do well. I really do. I want to do well, and I think a lot of your explanations really do help. I went back through this morning and looked at some of the basic fundamental stuff that you had on there, and it does help. And it does help just to kind of reinforce and kind of remotivate you to get back on track if you've lost a little bit of enthusiasm into the entire test. Makes sense.
I'm glad the videos are helping. I'm glad the course is helping. I sense that logic games, you feel maybe a little bit discouraged. The energy is a little bit lower in that department.
It is. I'm feeling that way right now, but like I said, it's one of those things that I know that there's a big section of it, a big portion of it. And now, because I am probably going to push it from June to August, I know there's going to be that 4th section. So I don't know what's going, that experimental section. I don't know what it'll be. Will it be logic games? Will it be? And it's like, and for me, the most frustrating piece is not knowing what to expect. So it's like that unknown for me is very frustrating. So that's where I don't know. I'm almost like, well, let me just pull the Band-Aid and take it in June, because I know what at least I'm getting myself into. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's best to take it in June and then retake it again in August? Or do you just think that wait and then take it in August?
Well, you can't do the whole thing in 2 months, right? I know that you had prior exposure to the LSAT. You said back in January, starting then, before getting into the course and using my training program. But it sounds like you're not where you want to be at with logic games. You're just going to start getting into logical reasoning as a focus now, post reset. My intuition's telling me that if you're considering August, you should probably go for August. You can still apply at the beginning of the cycle either way and give yourself that additional 2 months to maximize your score. But if the logic game's energy isn't where you want it to be right now, but you also recognize you got to keep pushing ahead, then, like I said, move on without moving on. Go into logical reasoning, make that the focus in the short term, just to help bring your energy level back up while continuing to mix in some logic games on the side and continue practicing that.
Gotcha.
I know that obviously nobody wants to do the experimental section. There's no benefit to you for doing it, but it's going to be there. And that's the price you're paying in this case for getting the additional 2 months of prep. Good news is that price isn't actually a very high one, other than the uncertainty of knowing what's going to happen on test day, meaning which additional section will you be getting? Where will it be placed? You don't know that. You're just basically spending an extra 35 minutes that isn't going to be scored. But since you don't know which part it is, you've got to give it the same effort regardless. But this isn't really a new thing. This was always on the LSAT. The flex was just a temporary removal of that extra section. So they're bringing it back in, but everyone's going to be in the same boat, and you just got to practice accordingly. So build up your endurance a little bit more than you would otherwise by taking practice tests with the 4-section format, not the 3.
How often do you think practice tests should be taken?
Once you've built a solid foundation, at least once a week, maybe twice a week if you have more time in your schedule. But it's more about the review you do after the fact than just getting more tests under your belt.
And that's, I think, where I'm feeling like I haven't gotten enough practice tests, just because I'm still building those foundations. And so I'm feeling like I'm almost a little behind, but I don't know. I'm like, well, should I just like start going through them? And I guess My questions are more in line of, should I just continue with the schedule and move forward that way, or should I deviate from it and start the practice tests and just putting them in there throughout the week?
Well, your schedule is going to change if you go for August, right? You've been doing on a 2-month plan before.
Right.
Now we've got to lengthen that because you have the additional 2 months. So you may want to switch gears and do the 4-month program instead, spread it out a little bit, give yourself some more time. You don't need to start practice tests yet. If you're curious about them, yeah, sure, take one and see how it goes, but take the results with a big grain of salt because you're still building that foundation. You might alternatively just do a logic game section timed or a logical reasoning section timed. Once you dig into logical reasoning, see what that's like and build it up. Then even if you start taking practice tests in mid-June, you could take a full 2 months focused on practice tests, even just one a week. That'll give you roughly 8 or 9, which is a good amount of practice. And if you want to increase it significantly, then just do 2 a week if you have the room in your weekly schedule.
Gotcha. What else? I have a list of stuff on my questions here.
Yeah, shoot.
Testing accommodations. What are your thoughts, your general thoughts on testing accommodations? Do you think that the LSAT does pretty good about accommodating, especially extra time based on, of course, circumstances? Or do you think that they usually deny those kind of requests?
They used to deny them all the time. They got sued several times. They've since become more liberal in granting them. Okay. So I'm curious, do you think you might qualify for them?
Maybe. I think we'll see after I submit all the information and we'll see what they say. But based on the criteria, it looks like I might. But I don't want to use it as a crutch. I still want to continue with the 35-minute sections and move forward that way. But I guess getting back to, I want to be ready and prepared for what's coming versus like, well, now I'm going to have all this extra time that I don't need. And I'm just going to be sitting there and psyching myself out for the next section.
There's probably not a lot of downside to getting extra time, especially if you think you might qualify. Okay. Extra time accommodations are typically time and a half. Some people get double time. So time and a half brings you from 35 minutes per section to 53 minutes per section.
Okay.
You can probably benefit from it if you think you might qualify. I would get the evaluation, see what a doctor says, see what a professional says, and give LSAC as much documentation as you possibly can to support your case for it. And let the evidence make the decision. And LSAC does sometimes still deny, so you can appeal with more documentation or another evaluation. But especially if you're finding right now that you're having difficulty finishing the section, obviously more practice will help you get closer to finishing the section. But if you, as a test, you could see, hey, if I had 53 minutes, what would change? You'll probably have an easier time finishing the section.
Right.
So I would go forward, start the process now. It sounds like you're already compiling things, but see what happens. Don't assume you're getting the accommodations until you actually do. Okay. But if and when you do, then you can practice with that extra time, either time and a half or in some cases double time.
So if you finish a section, hypothetically, say that you do get the testing accommodation and you finish the section before your allotted time is up, do you just have to wait there until it's up, or can you move on to the next section?
You do have to wait.
Okay.
This is not a problem that a lot of people run into just because the LSAT is so strictly timed. And personally, I'd aim to have a buffer of 3 to 5 minutes at the end. Right. By design. So I move at a pretty fast pace. I might flag the toughest questions, especially in logical reasoning where they're individual and not related to each other. I'd flag those, skip them, come back to them at the end with those 3 to 5 minutes as a buffer. And then going back, giving them a second look, giving them a few extra minutes and see if I can make it click.
Perfect. Let me see if there's any advice you can give me, anything that you can provide me that is going to remotivate me to move on with this test and continue with the rest of the LSAT and law school journey.
Yeah, I would say keep coming to class, go to the study groups, form connections with others, hear their stories, share your story, build friendships. that can be some of the most powerful ways to build the motivation to know that you're not going through it alone.
Okay. Yeah, I just feels like it is. And so it's one of those things I was like, okay, well, I will get back to studying one more time.
Everyone else is in the same boat as you. Everyone else is in the same boat as you. So don't go through this alone, because you're not.
Okay. Okay. I did have one final question. Your LSAT mastery dashboard, the tracking your numbers on a 12 weeks plan. Is that something that you'd recommend doing now with building the fundamentals, or waiting until you start taking some of the practice tests?
You can use it now.
Yeah. Okay.
You can use it throughout your entire journey. It's just a way to track things, because
Right.
otherwise you're not going to know where you were at last week, and you want to measure your energy level and see how it relates to the amount that you're putting in. And this also helps you focus on what really matters. And that's
Right.
what you're putting in, because it can take a while to get the results out. The LSAT
Right.
is tough, and accuracy percentage is not the only thing to look at.
Okay.
The more work you put in, the more work you will get out, but it may not happen in a day or a week. It could take weeks, but just keep putting in the work, keep showing up to class, keep doing the problems, keep watching the videos, and you will see results.
Thank you. And like I said, I appreciate it. I appreciate having you as a resource, and the team. It's very helpful to rely on somebody that has that experience, and that can walk through things in a very simplistic manner and not complicate things with adding different terms. And it's just like, it's just what it is, plain English. So I like that.
Of course.
But yeah, like I said, I'm excited. I'm excited for the future, but it's one of those things that it is frustrating, that it's like, okay, 2 more months of hell. Let's make it happen. Let's do this. Okay, I can do this. But you make time, and my family's great about allowing my my time when I need it, but it's prioritizing, and it's helping me build, but at the same time it's I feel like it's always that you're always wanting to do more and for your family and others, and it's like it's a time where you just have to be selfish almost, and it's not part of my personality to just take that extra time for myself. So this is, I guess it's almost a double-edged sword. It's like I'm forcing myself to be selfish.
Know that this will serve a larger purpose, so it isn't selfish in the end. Yeah. And also, I want to ask you before we wrap up, just what if this didn't have to be hell? What if this could be fun?
I hope so. I want it to be fun. I want it to be that way, but I don't know. Like I said, it's so many years of trying. This will be my 3rd attempt. And so many years of trying, so many years of getting denied. And it's like, I just want to be over with it. Want to move on with my life, get into law school, finish law school. I'm ready to move forward into my career and everything else I want to do. And so I feel like this is just one of those stepping stones that has been the hardest for me to achieve. And so I guess that's why I'm like, it's hell, because it just 3 years of hell seems like a long time. And now a couple more months and a couple more months. So I do want it fun. I do want it to be fun though. And I have learned a lot from it. And I've learned to be patient. That's one thing that I've learned. I've learned how to be patient and slow down. But when you live in a really fast-paced world, you almost want things quicker, and and it's like, as you get older, your mind doesn't grasp things as it used to when you were straight out of school.
I hear what you're saying there, but you have the opportunity here with this additional 2 months to transform your experience of the LSAT and what law school can be like as well. This does relate.
Yeah. And
you can set up the structures here so that your LSAT studying will inform what you do in law school after the fact. And I know you've been at this since January, and we're speaking now in May, but you're restarting now with this new 2-month program. Mm-hmm. It can now extend to a 4-month program. And so you're actually not even close to the end yet. So you still have room to change what this experience can be like. And there are people in the course who've been down this road before. There's the instructors, there's the TAs, there's students who've been in the course for longer than you have, and you can benefit from their experiences and see how their framings can support you as well.
Oh, good. And any of your TAs non-traditional students, or are they all pretty much traditional students that that a lot of their education has just been school. I mean, school and work. Because I do want to find people that know exactly the type of things that I have to go through. It's not necessarily like I hear stories, but the stories are like, okay, big deal, you go to school, like like, yeah, that's great. I have like, I don't know, 50 other items that I have on my plate, but besides just school, but I just really want to make sure that I can hear from those people, those instructors, because they'll help me, I think, see things in a different light.
Yeah, ask them their stories. There are a number of people. I'll send you some names and you can attend their classes and see. But I'd say honestly, most of the people are not the so-called KJDs, straight from kindergarten to law school.
Yeah.
I'd say probably the majority of them have spent some time in the workforce first. They have work obligations, they have family obligations. Yeah, so talk to them. I'll send you a few people's names.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Claudia. It was great connecting with you.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate you and your team and all of the resources you have out there. There's so much that it's just like, okay, I'm going to focus on one thing today, but it's good. It's better than no resources. So I appreciate that.
Of course. Glad to help. Reach out if you need anything. I'm happy to help you out.
Will do. And again, thanks for taking some time today.
Of course. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.